I have not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
All right, we got our guy Kyle Theige in the house here, just slinging fastballs on Lakers Twitter. Were you bookmarking things throughout the series and then revisiting them systematically last night?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
that's what I thought was happening.
It's all in fun, right? Like anyone who takes anything on social media too seriously, kind of a bum. But there's some things that when Ant did the gun 3-point gesture at Luka, and a lot of Lakers fans like, oh, let's revisit this one later.
Yeah,
like,
let's.
all right, well, it is 11:30 Pacific time. The Wolves just won 4-1. Would you like to do that now? Or this one guy was like, I'm betting my whole bank account on the Lakers now. It's like, okay, what's your Venmo? I got you, because you're a broke bleep. So fun time last night. But I will say, and I maybe we can start it here. I'm loving it. Ba-dum-bum-bum-bum. But I thought I would wake up today feeling a little more excited. And to be honest, I mean, the excitement's there, but I'm not like that hyped, because you and I were, I think, two of the very few small people in this market that I thought they were going to win. And
Me too.
I said 6 because I thought it would just be one of those things where you got to get back home and sleep in your own bed to close it out. But 5 was the magic number, and you could make an argument that it could have been a sweep, right? Even that game 2, when they played so poorly, they had opportunities to win it. So I'm beyond excited for what this next round could look like, and moving on, the first time in franchise history that this team has ever gone back-to-back seasons getting out of the first round. But it felt more like another day in the work week today, waking up, because the team that we cover is just vastly better than the team that they defeated.
Yes, I want to revisit that in a moment, and a bunch of other things. We'll get to a random Wolf of the Week for the first time in a couple weeks here because of just all of our travel schedules and whatnot. But Dennis Kirk is here for riding season just in time this weekend. It's like 70, meteorologist Macadac here. It's going to be like 77 and sunny this weekend in the Twin Cities. So if you are a motorcycle rider, you like to get on the ATV, UTVs out on your land, your dirt bikes, or maybe you're just a sicko and you're already waiting for snowmobile season. Like producer Ross hates when it's hot outside. He's probably looking at snowmobiles. Dennis Kirk has over 185,000 parts, apparel, and accessories for riding season. When you order before 6 p.m. Central Time, they ship the same day. Free shipping on orders over $89. So DennisKirk.com, helping to power Flagrant Howls here. Yeah, the level of shock and dismay among Lakers fans. There was one, because I now in my Twitter algorithm throughout the last couple weeks, I get like the big Laker fan accounts and stuff popping in there with their stuff.
Parody account, yeah.
Yeah, and there was one that was just tweeting in disbelief, just tweeting through his feelings. I can't remember the account, but it was 5 games, really? Like shocked that it just is over in 5 games. And I agree. I'm also shocked that the series ended in 5 games, because if the Wolves wouldn't have gone 5 for 25 from 3 in game 2, it would have and should have ended in a sweep. I'm more shocked that it wasn't a sweep looking back through the series than I am that the Lakers didn't like push through. And the screenshot that keeps going around too of the ESPN 10 different analysts, all the NBA experts, not only did all 10 of them incorrectly foolishly think that the Lakers were going to win the series, I think all of them had Lakers in 6 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the craziest misreads of a series, or maybe it was just great wishful thinking to extend the LeBron James era one more year, and it'd be really fun to watch Luka and LeBron gel together, I guess. But it was never rooted in reality, as we called before the series started.
I hadn't thought of that, but I'm so glad you mentioned it. I do think the only like national person who really picked the Wolves was Ryan Russillo, our guy. And I never know when like all the ESPN people, all the national pundits, the Gilbert Arenas of the world who no one listens to, pick the Lakers just because it's safer. I mean, I'll tell you, every time I sent a tweet during this series, it was like, man, they're trying to find my location. But if it's just that's the easier way to do it, and in that case, whatever, you're just mailing it in like people do with award ballots. But if that was your real analysis, it is fairly concerning, right? Like if you really thought that the Lakers were going to win in 5. And then the Wolves win in 5. I mean, there is such a giant delta between those two outcomes that it goes back to that stupid Apple iOS analogy I have of like, are you just using an older software where your Twitter app is blue and not black? Because I thought you actually did a great job of pointing out when you did like your favorite 10, or your not favorite 10, but your top 10 players in this series. I think we have to like fully graduate away from, they have the best player in this series.
Yeah.
I've talked about this with you, like football. 2 teams playing, I'm probably going to lean the team that has the better quarterback. But in the NBA now, the Bucks by far had the better player in Giannis against the Pacers, and they had no chance. And that was even before the Dame injury, and then once he got out, it was cooked. But yeah, and in this series now in hindsight, right, Phil? Like you're probably saying Ant was the best player in the series, but you had to say Luka to start with. He did give you really good moments, but the depth of Minnesota and the fact that last night Naz Reid I thought was terrible, right? And Jaden had the foul trouble game. And it's like, okay, cool. We'll take that ingredient out and we'll take that ingredient out. And then we'll just throw in 2 other ingredients. The best game Nikhil's played. You get real nothing from Rudy Gobert in terms of true production in the first 4 games. He averages 3.5 points a game through 1 through 4. And then last night he has the best game of his career, which I do want to talk about more. So yeah, it also has got a reminder too that when this comes out this summer, the Wolves are going to have probably more nationally televised games because Ant is continuing to grow as a star. But I used to really care about that stuff. I used to really care when my favorite team wasn't talked about on a podcast. And then you start to realize as you get older, they just don't really watch it and they don't care. And I don't want that to be my coverage. I want Dane Moore to cover this. I want Judd Zolgad. I want, Britt Robson. I want Jim Pete and Grady to call my games. I don't need Doris Burke and Richard Jefferson. So
Crunch wears no pants.
Yeah. Shout out to the homies there. Goosebumps. So I just felt more after the Denver series. Of course, you felt ecstatic, and someone at this company might have cried on the pod. But after last night, I just felt relieved because the better team won, the better coach won, the better organization won. And it does set themselves up now where it's like, okay, a couple days off. Let's figure out who the next opponent is. But that team is going to be a problem for whoever they play in the second round. And I think you guys talked about it earlier today, but there's really no reason now in my heart that I don't see this team making another Western Conference Finals run. Like that is like the expectation now because they're going to be favored against either the Rockets or the Warriors. Yeah,
and that series continues tomorrow night. I believe it's a Friday and then a Sunday if it gets to a game 7. And it's interesting because Steph Curry's thumb looks like there's a golf ball attached to like the top knuckle. It's all inflamed, and the Rockets were apparently going on the closeouts, which is legal because hand is you can high five a guy.
You learned that with Julius, right? Like Luka high fived him and it was no call.
Yep. And they're going at his hand, so who knows what he's going to be like physically. I do think the Warriors close it out and they win one of the next 2. I think the Rockets would actually be the easier quote unquote matchup because they're not a great shooting team. They're young, they're inexperienced, and I just think there's things the Wolves would do with 6 days of preparation to win that chess match. They're very well coached. So I think the Warriors are the harder out. I also think the Wolves have a lot of matchup advantages against the Warriors, but I want the Warriors more than I've wanted anything following and covering this team in 20 years, dude. Like it would be storylines, smoke, drama, legacies. You line up the storylines and the Wolves can knock them down, right? Mm-hmm. Anthony Edwards, legend killer. Luka Doncic, LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, Kevin Durant, if you want to put Devin Booker on that list. Steph Curry being the next pelt on the wall. Kobe and LeBron never got to face each other in a playoff series. Kobe and Michael never got to face each other. Kobe and LeBron and Michael. Like you don't oftentimes get the era crossover battles like you did way back in the day with Magic versus Jordan and the NBA Finals in 1990 or 1991. But to watch this transformation happen in front of us in a 7-game series, and then there's the Draymond Gobert physical altercations over the years. There's Jimmy Butler one of the most hated figures among Timberwolves fans coming back to an arena that he usually dodges or finds some ailment to sit out. Like, it would be theater, dude, for 5, 6, 7 games, however long that series goes. So I definitely want it to be Wolves and Warriors.
Yeah, Finchy said last night after the game that we're all allowed to kind of celebrate this one a little bit because we've all taken, I think he was talking about his team, but I also think he meant our podcast, has taken a lot of bleep. But so I haven't really wrapped my head around it yet. I will say this is the podcast that brought you the Denver Nuggets are a fake 1 seed. They're Purdue, and then they won the title. So we're still.
We were just like a year late on that take.
Yeah,
or a year early, I guess, on that.
We were clawing our way back from that. But I do think one of the things, and you and I were kind of workshopping this together, so I want to credit you. But the best thing I had coming into this series, Wolves-Lakers, was on full display, is that I just thought the Lakers and this version of Luka and his teammates was much closer to what we saw with the Phoenix Suns last year than what we saw with the Dallas Mavericks. And it was basically like 3 different types of offensive weapons and then just not much else. Not a lot of rim protection, not a lot of depth. Probably a good coach, but over a series, I think that wears you down. So I haven't really done the prep yet for what it could look like in the next round, but initially I kind of throw Golden State back into that Phoenix. I mean, there's Steph is awesome and Jimmy's awesome, but I do kind of throw them into that scenario of getting of like 2 or 3 good players and then some bench guys that can just be very volatile. Like if it is the Warriors, they don't play Kuminga. They don't have a lot of size. They have some younger guys that they try to throw out there, but the Rockets to me are more of a wild card because they have a lot of young talent and they're super physical. And I don't know, the Lakers clearly were not physical. I don't know how the Wolves would react to a really physical series. I mean, the Rockets are starting to do a lot of 90s Pistons things. But either way, the most beneficial thing last night after the Wolves win is to remember that 3 hours earlier, Warriors-Rockets got extended to another game. And now the Wolves are back in that scenario where they can sit back, a couple extra days of rest. Every time Finch and his staff gets a chance to really scout and plan, his guys are ready. And I think it was really important to not only, I mean, you knew they were going to win the series now, up 3-1, but to close it out in 5, to give themselves that little advantage because you still need to carve out those little margins in the playoffs to give yourself the best chance. And again, Golden State, the storylines, everything you just said, but it's also how many times has a 6 seed had home court advantage in the second round?
Right.
So I think that would be a big one for me is that Minnesota would have that extra game at home if they play Golden State versus going on the road against Houston.
Do you think the Timberwolves can win the Larry O'Brien trophy?
I have, on the list of things I've been so wrong about, I think I've just been anti-OKC because I'm jealous. Like, you just have that one friend who has the perfect family and house, and, like, that's OKC. They're so good. I know the Wolves, what was it, maybe like 2-2 this season in the regular season. A lot of those games had noise or, like, the comeback was fueled by a lot of guys that wouldn't play in the series for Minnesota. But that would be one of the best basketball series ever. But yeah, I don't look at the Celtics right now and the Cavs as like as good as maybe I thought. They're still elite, and maybe it's just because they didn't have to play anyone in the first round. But I do think, and maybe this is a bigger picture thing that we can talk about, I think this Timberwolves team, and it has no discredit to any former players, but I think the lumps they took last year, I think this 24-25 team just has a better overall chance to win a title than the 23-24 team that we saw last year.
I agree for many different reasons. I was always obviously skeptical of any team with Karl Anthony Towns as the number 2 guy on the pecking order, that they would be able to be tough enough, to be disciplined enough, to avoid foul trouble enough, and all those things. And it's crazy because the Knicks are seeing in real time the wild swings of Karl Anthony Towns in those 5 games against the Pistons. 2 of them have been complete no-show offensive performances with a bunch of foul trouble. Like, he picked up his 5th foul in game 5 with like 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter of a really close game, and he's just unavailable for like 5 minutes. But then in 3 of the games, he's hitting like game winners and going crazy and getting whatever he wants in the paint. So there's you can't predict. He might go 3 games and shoot 20% from 3.
For sure.
Julius had the 7 turnovers in the first game, but he was awesome the last 4 games. And there was a point last night. I mean, the Wolves had an historically bad shooting night. They missed 43s. And I looked just in this regular season, there was only 6 instances across the entire league in the regular season where a team shot 15% or worse on 30 or more attempts. Only one with 40 or more attempts. It was the Blazers on December 10th. Went like 4 for 42. All of those teams got beat and or smoked and decimated by like 40 points. So to be that historically bad shooting as a team, and Julius Randle becomes this stabilizing force in the fourth quarter. I mean, Rudy with the putbacks and the cleanups and stuff, but there was a stretch where it was, you need a calm, steady hand, someone to put their shoulder into an injured Luka Doncic, someone to get in, get just some go-to instant offense. And it was Julius Randle. And I think like that guy, just as much as Rudy, has taken a lot of, rightfully so, criticism for his bad postseason play. To watch the cycle of conversation from the Rudy trade 3 years ago to the Randle trade back in early October, and the initial reaction be, wow, these are awful trades. Like, these are fireable, terrible trades, franchise-wrecking trades. And then to see those pieces gel, and then to see last night those guys be the two main figureheads for sending the Lakers packing was really poetic. And so I want to shout out Julius Randle and to answer my own question, I do think this team can win a championship. I don't think they will be favored in a series against Oklahoma City. I don't think they'd be favored in a series against Boston, but I do think they could find a way to beat either one of those teams over 7 games.
And to your point about all the different things that have happened to this organization in the last couple of years, with like the ownership transition, or the big trade for Rudy Gobert, or the big trade of Karl-Anthony Towns, or all that stuff, even like the D'Lo for Mike Conley thing. And this will be the last time I do this. I really have kind of graduated from this take. But the one through line in all of that is Chris Finch. And I just maybe hope now, I mean, I understand how this all works and the internet works, but there will be mouth breathers in November that are like, oh my God, they lost to the Hornets, like they got to blow it up and fire him. But he is just, you saw it last night too, because he doesn't usually swear and he doesn't usually sound like I sound right now, like a nicotine patch sponsor. But Chris Finch really let it out last night that this team has felt the amount of bleep that they took all season, a lot of the hate based on their success last year, and just, they can't do it again and all this stuff. And he has, as was explained to me last week, like, managing a roster in 2025 in the NBA or pro sports in general, Phil, is like 90% egos and 10% X's and O's. And you really graduate to be more of a CEO than a head coach, just for all the stuff you got to do. And I think we got to stop trying to fire the CEO because the organization has 2 bad weeks of sales in like January. Like, he has taken this stock price to a level that we've never seen it before. Yeah, Rudy Gobert punched Kyle Anderson. I think that could have been way worse, but they pretty much handled it behind the scenes. They don't have drama. They don't have angry players. Like, players buy into their roles. They know when they're going to play. They know when they're not going to play. And do I sometimes get really, even last night, like that challenge? Man, that was like the worst challenge Chris Finch has ever had. I think
he got bad advice from an otherwise great challenge infrastructure. I feel like the Wolves are really on top of that usually, and he got some bad advice.
But that's like a micro thing, right? Like, all right, that was dumb. Now you're going to have to kind of swim uphill a little bit in terms of navigating a game that's going to have a weird whistle without a challenge. But in the macro, I did it last night with Dane Moore, but I got to do it again. Like, I have to apologize to Julius Randle because I saw the vision of the trade when it would happen a couple days before Media Day in September, from like the roster building standpoint of, okay, you just maybe don't want to swallow having to pay Karl all that money down the road. It limits your flexibility. And then I stupidly was just like, let's take a gap year and go to Europe, right? And like, let's start Rob. And no one in this organization, in this city, or in this state believed in Julius Randle and what he could be coming off that shoulder injury, allowing himself to kind of gel a little bit with a new team more than Chris Finch. And last night, someone asked Finchy a question about, like, what's for dinner? And he's like, I just want to take a second to be like, Julius Randle, we don't win that series in 5, 6, 7, or 13 without Julius.
Yeah.
So for him to build him up, especially after I think he was also kind of shocked about the trade. I think he thought they were going year 3 of Carl and Rudy, and it got kind of pivoted. So for him to be able to connect with all these guys, it's not even a debate anymore. I know we have to at some point, maybe this summer, loop in Judd and others, the Kevin Garnett versus Ant debate. Maybe that's a little too early still. Although I will say again, if Ant makes another Western Conference Finals, some people are going to get uncomfortable. But there is no more debate about who the best coach is in franchise history. Finch got to 500 in his playoff career. That's actually pretty good. I think the late, great Flip Saunders, who was also an amazing coach, had like a 37% winning percentage in the playoffs. They never got out of the first round more than once. So Finchy and Tim Connelly and the moves he makes, and he doesn't care what you think about it, and they've almost all worked out, other than maybe Wendell Moore. They just have a real good chemistry that I think starts up top and then just leaks into the roster and to the locker room. And you got to be really excited if you're a Timberwolves fan, because injuries can happen and players can get, a little disgruntled about contracts, and this offseason is still going to be huge in terms of who do they pay and who do they let go. But this thing is about as well-oiled as we've ever seen in 36 years, and it's as most sustainable, and there's a foundation. And I think if you haven't bought in yet and you're one of the 7 stragglers, now is the time to do it, because this team, to answer your own question, really actually has a chance this morning of winning a title.
Yeah, whether it's this year or just the window that they're walking into with a really, really good set of president of basketball operations, front office, Chris Finch, Anthony Edwards, who's not even in his prime yet. So, yeah, like there's a really interesting window that's opening here. On Finch, no one on this podcast outright called for his head. I think the highest the temperature was among our Chris Finch takes was the clutch time stuff in the regular season, where, like, after the Bucks game, I remember saying, because these are huge games that impact seeding, and you have a chance to be the 3 seed. It turns out you knock off the 3 seed, and you might get home court anyways in the semifinals, and it won't matter. But my biggest criticism was, in the regular season the last 2 years, the Wolves have been statistically, net rating wise, one of the 5 or 6 worst clutch time teams, right there with high lottery teams. And some of that is your main decision maker and initiator is 21, 22, 23 years old and trying to figure this out. But at the same time, it's like there's lineup combinations. There's some really bad out of timeout inbounds things that are just chaotic and lead to bad shots. And like that whole mess of ingredients falls on Chris Finch. And it's the number one thing that he needs to clean up. He knows that, obviously. And dude, in this series against the Lakers, the Wolves were the dominant fourth quarter and clutch time team. They literally flipped it 180 degrees. And I think the week of preparation, certainly Anthony Edwards buying in and being a super patient, precise decision maker and passer. Very few times did he go completely rogue and start shooting step back threes and clanking shots and going in hero mode. It's almost like he reveled that the Mike Conley dagger 3.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the lasting image from that game. I know there's a bunch of Rudy putback dunks that are also lasting image, but Anthony Edwards knifing through the Lakers defense and peeking his head out of the lane as the defense collapses, and poof, wide open Mike Conley. Trusting Conley after the team had missed 43 pointers over 2 hours. Playmaker Ant, Chris Finch going into the lab and fixing their biggest problem in that series is what really stands out to me.
Playoff Ant was a thing before this season or this postseason, but I think we also might have to assume that playoff Finch is a thing. And I'll never forget because you're right, when they blew that Bucks game, man, whoever you want to blame Pyatt, Finch got a chunk of it. And I remember after the game when Johnny K was there and he asked him the question about are you concerned this is your DNA? And he was like, I don't know, that wasn't the right wording, but he was like, it wasn't our DNA. But he didn't snap back in a super aggressive way. He was just kind of like, that's a bad game. We blew it. we play again in 2 days. Like, let's figure it out. Even though it was like game 78. And you're like, man, you might fall into the play-in. And at the time, I just didn't like that. I thought that wasn't the way to handle it. And this is a good segue because I know you have some thoughts. And then I was at 4 of these 5 games, and I just watched how JJ Redick, who I like, handled pre- and post-game stuff. And I thought he brought a level of volatility and highs and lows that's how his team kind of played.
And if that's his energy, just talking to the media for 10 minutes, what's his energy in a practice, in a film study? It's just, and even dude like Reggie Miller, who I thought was, I don't know, man. I don't want to. That job can be hard, and Reggie Miller generally
thought
entertaining.
Rudy Gobert was going to get deported because he fouled Luka, and then 40 seconds later was like, oh, actually, that was Dante, and his face is bleeding, and he just touched Luka's shoulder.
Yeah, it was. So I know the referendum on Reggie, and boy, when's the last time Rudy scored 20 points in a game? Like a week and a half ago, actually. Yeah. So thanks. But one thing he did say was, JJ Redick was super tense, even in the meeting with the TNT crew, with like Kevin Harlan and Allie LaForce and Reggie Miller, who are like friendly fire, man. Like this isn't gotcha questions from random media members. And Reggie said, I had to tell him, dude, like let it go, let games 3 and 4 go. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see if that's how tense he was in the first round of his first ever playoff series. That pressure is only going to ratchet up the more the clock ticks down on LeBron, who may or may not be back as a Laker based on his press conference yesterday.
I thought he got rattled too. And again, I'm maybe in the minority here, but I like Redick as a coach most of the time, and I've been to a lot of his games. But when he last night, and we've been kind of bleeping on him for 48 hours about how he doesn't have many levers to pull, and Jackson Hayes isn't a good basketball player, but last night when Rudy Gobert is giving you 27 and 24, at some point, you got to put your pride aside and be like, I got to throw the big guy out there. And instead, what does he do? He plays a guy in Maxi Kleber who is making his Lakers debut and is spotted up taking these huge threes late in the fourth quarter. And it's like, man, Maxi Kleber is kind of a good player. He's not ready for that. Like,
it's crazy.
It was like he was so set in his ways of, I'm going to show you, that he might have helped drown their ship. So yeah. I love good energy, and I love being petty, and I love crabby people, but like to walk out on that interview, which was a valid question, by the way, Redick, and that energy just has to kind of be palpable in the locker room. And I think Finch does the opposite of that. So before we do, random wolf of the week, can we just kind of do the Rudy Gobert thing quick? Because we haven't talked about it yet. Like,
yeah, man, let's do it.
Where you at? Like, what are your thoughts on that performance in that spot last night?
Yeah, well, man.
Do you want me to start?
I'll give you a couple takes here. Soapbox Phil is trying to come out here, and I'm trying to decide if I'm going to let Soapbox Phil come out or if he's going to be reasonable, because
come on out.
You put yourself out there with these microphones, and you have takes on things, and people clap back, and then they never circle back. They love to circle back when you're wrong and remind you that you're wrong, and that happens all the time. Absolutely. But the biggest stances that I've taken on this podcast over the last 3 years are, and I remember like even convincing you early on, like, dude, the Rudy trade. I was
going to stay in Mexico. Remember?
Let's go through the list. Pat Beverly is a podcaster. Jared Vanderbilt is, I don't know, just like a 12-minute Tasmanian Devil, desperation playoff minutes. Walker Kessler is fine, but he's just like racking up rebounds on losing teams. And then, okay, all those draft picks, but look at all the young talent the Wolves have. Jalen Clark, Terrence Shannon Jr., Jaden McDaniels, all these dudes who are 25 and younger. So in the moment, it was like, how could they possibly give up that much for Rudy Gobert, right? Here's my take on last night. I personally did not need the box score gratification game, which was last night. He was wildly impactful as a rebounder and a scorer in ways that made people shocked. And those are historic numbers for him in the playoffs, the points and the rebounds. He's never had a 20-20 game in the playoffs. So one of the best performances, hands down, of his career. But even when he's not putting up the box score numbers, he is impacting games so much more than most people give him credit for. And it bothers me because he looks clunky. He's got kind of a weird French personality. He can be a little standoffish and arrogant, and like he's unlikable to his peers in the league. And I understand where some of that's coming from. But when Shaquille O'Neal has a hard time just giving the dude props for 3 minutes at halftime without doing the I'm gonna give him props, but I'm gonna mock him by pretending I'm gagging. It's like this guy altered countless shots by Luka and LeBron. Why do you think the Lakers could barely score 100 points in any of the games in the series? It's not because of Naz Reid's defense, all due respect. It's not because of Mike Conley's defense. Julius Randle provides a big body to go up against Luka and LeBron, and that's great. The centerpiece of the reason why teams have such a hard time scoring 100 points on the Timberwolves the last 3 years is that 7'3" French dude with a crazy wingspan. He's out there. Dude, the Lakers spent the first 2 games of the series hunting him in isolation and just trying to get him to switch off on pick and roll to Luka while the crowd started rising to their feet. He put an end to that so fast. Like, how many times did you see that happen in the last 3 games? A few times. But that was, you want to rip on JJ Redick, if that was him empowering Luka to do so. They thought, let's play his ass off the court in the first 2 games, get the Wolves to play smaller, then we got him where we want them. Rudy squashed it after the first 2 games, even though he wasn't putting up 15 and 12 in the box score in those games. So a total validation, once again, of the trade, a total validation of one of the most underappreciated, underrated careers of the last 10 years in the NBA. Soapbox Phil out.
I think Finch said it really well last night. He talked about how, and you just said this too, right? Like, he aesthetically on the court, it's not always how you would think an athletic center would play, and maybe some off the court stuff. He sees things differently than you, or believes in different things, and has a lot of, Sedona gemstones and stuff. But has anyone, and I do kind of throw Ant into this, but Ant is just the super duper star. But has anyone really ever elevated a floor of success and winning more than this guy? Right? Like, so all the awkwardness, and he doesn't always jump, and he's on his tippy toes, but he just, for him to have that game, right? 27 and 24, and to be dominant. I think he was the first guy to have 25 or more points, 20 or more rebounds, and shoot 75% or better in a playoff game.
Yeah.
Since Shaq did it in the 2004 finals. Shaq.
Yeah.
The guy that you just said, like, for him to do it on that stage, 10 and a half months removed from the Luka shot over him, or, 7.5 months removed from him in his home country, kind of getting benched in the Olympics. He had an opportunity last night to do the petty, immature stuff that I was doing, just letting the receipts fly. And he just comes up to the podium by himself and just talks about winning and being a good teammate. And, he's the first locker on the road. He has his own little corner spot, and he's always open to talk to you about basketball and give you real answers, especially after a loss. Like, he's there, man. And that's not true of everyone. Like, when after losses, guys ditch media, which whatever. But he is willing to talk to you about a lot of things. And I just think, I don't even know how you have a debate now about the Gobert trade. Was it worth it? But that will go down as a seismic moment in Timberwolves lore, because not only did you bring in a winner, it was a risky gamble, right? Like, I thought they gave up too much for Gobert that summer when we started this whole pod. But also people were like, why are you doing it now? Ant's 20. He's not ready to win. And Tim Conley and Chris Finch and the organization were like, no, we're going to expedite this. We want to make him learn winning habits now. And Ant gets so much credit for working on his game, but he has a teammate that has a 63% winning percentage in the regular season. Like, that matters. So I don't know if I've ever been as happy for a player as I was last night, because, again, having big games against the Sixers on a front line in March when you're on a 17-4 run, and you're trying to catch up in the standings is one thing, but doing it against Luka, doing it against the Lakers, doing it against, that franchise and all the big guys they've had, and then having to throw it to the TNT crowd or show, and Shaq's got to, even in his own funny way, like, cop to it. I mean, then I've never seen a narrative of an athlete change more in that moment. He did win a title. He didn't. That's his goal still. But man, there were so many people, as Worldwide Wob said last night, the timeline was quiet because they didn't want to talk about it.
You know what he is? He's like, this isn't a perfect comparison or analogy, but he's like a really good right tackle in the NFL, or like
Perfect.
a really good left guard. So he's kind of nondescript in that he's not a receiver, he's not a Anthony Edwards is the quarterback, and maybe Julius Randle is like your pass catching tight end, and you're not calling any plays really for your right tackle, obviously. So he's out there, and for 3 hours he pretty much just like shuts the edge rusher down time and time again. But once or twice in a game, he's going to clumsily give up a pressure, or like he's going to fall down awkwardly or something. And so what happens is once a game, he gets posterized or fumbles a ball out of bounds. There was one where I can't remember if it was a pass or if it was an offensive rebound opportunity. And, it's like he goes up to grab it, and it's like his left and right arm weren't coordinating with each other, and they kind of like miss, and the ball bounces off one of his hands. It's kind of a classic Rudy moment.
He still looks like the inflatable tube man outside of every car dealership sometimes. Yeah.
And so people focus on the aesthetically unpleasing stuff because it's awkward and it's annoying and you wish that it was different. But they don't focus on the never minds that we talk about. The 10 different times in the second half that Rudy made LeBron put a little extra arc on a mid-range shot and it clanked, or made Luka drive in and then abort mission and drive back out. He just, it's the subtle things. It's the long snapper in the NFL that just delivers 150 straight perfect punting snaps, and then, the one time that he gets pushed on his ass or something and a kick gets blocked. Oh, look at this guy. So not a perfect comparison, but one other thing real quick that we have not mentioned that's very good news for the Wolves moving forward here. They just beat the Lakers in 5 games. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is shooting 22% from 3 and 26% from the floor in the playoffs. Dante DiVincenzo is shooting 19% from 3 in the playoffs. And Mike Conley is shooting 29% from 3 in the playoffs. Now, some people might hear that and say, well, that's bad. That's bad. Those guys can't. I look at that and I say, well, that ain't going to continue. We're going to get like a huge Nickeil Alexander-Walker and or Dante DiVincenzo series at some point. And if it happens against the Warriors, guess what? That'll be a 5-game series too. So they've still got those in reserve for a future date here in May.
No team has ever shot like the Wolves shot last night and won the game in the playoffs. Like that was just there was a stat, I can't find it anymore, but it was not only do teams in those situations lose, but they typically lose by an average of like 20 points per game.
It's wild. Yep.
So for the Wolves to pull that one out, and I'm with you because Dane pointed this out last night. I kind of thought like I had this dumb idea in the moment of like, this reminds me of when the Rockets shot really poorly against the Warriors. But as Dane reminded me, like those were more forced threes, or like our system is only to dribble past half court and let it fly. The Wolves, of the 40-some shots they took last night from deep, 75% of them were incredible looks.
They were.
I mean, some of those Dante threes were classic shoot around, wake up in the gym threes, and he missed them all. And you pointed this out in game, but if they would have just hit 2 or 3 of those in any given chunk of time, the game would have been over at that point. So for them to not have their superpower, I think they were top 5 all season in 3-point percentage, for them to not have that weapon and to just, okay, again, let's just have a Rudy game, or, Julius Flowers again, like he was awesome and he hit really timely shots and got to his spots. So huge moment for the Timberwolves and the organization, and I think the fans. And now you kind of wait and see, does this thing start in Minnesota, game 1 on Monday? Does it maybe start in Houston, game 1 on Tuesday? But they made a statement, and that's what they typically do. This coach, this organization, these players, they make statements, and they love being doubted. And now they have a couple days to rest until they take their next challenge of like, all right, let's try to go do what no one thought we could do, and that's win a title.
Yeah. Amen, dude. Plenty more to talk about. But if people want more from you guys, you and Dane did a great podcast late into the night, and then we had an hour-long vent line session last night. So awesome. There's more where that came from, and we will have much more on what's going to happen when we know who the Wolves' opponent is. But let's get him in here. Producer extraordinaire and the keeper of Random Wolf of the Week, Ross Brendel in the house.
Ross, I had one last note, and I'll keep this one short, but I know Phil's going to love this, and I want your opinion too. After everything we just said about this team and that series win and stuff, and we've done the Michael Jordan comps and all these things, I stayed at the JW Marriott in LA Live, and so it's right next to the arena, but there's nothing more organic or just like authentic. How about that Anthony Edwards, like, bleep it, I'm just going to walk back to the hotel. Like, I mean, Anthony Edwards, after putting the Lakers away, is like, I'm just going to walk through the streets of downtown LA and tell fans and homeless people, like, not today, buddy. Like so I run this city. Like, we are so lucky to have that in our lives, and you rarely get that opportunity. And Ross, I know you've walked around some downtowns in your life telling people what's up. So
Ross was doing that after the Twins beat the Guardians a few days ago. He was very haughty, and then they...
Well, you know what they say, boys, you own the team, you own the city. And at least for my baseball trip, the Twins were able to do that at least one time in a 4-game series against the Guardians.
Have they scored a run yet today? Are they? I think they're playing right now.
I think they're in another...
they did score a run. They scored a run today. All right, 2-1.
They had another rain out. It was like 75 and sunny in Cleveland, so I thought they had the rain out.
That's right.
I'm going to mess with these
It might rain in a couple days. Let's put the tarp on. I think Ross is also acting as technical lighting director here. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So here's how this works. Ross has a series of clues, and Kyle and I will compete against each other in a battle of Wolves' historical wits. So on the season here, this is year number 2. I have a 9-7 lead over you. Lord Kilby has 1 victory on the season. Craig Kilborn, all-time Kyle with 29 career victories. I have 21, and Kilby has the 1. Jake Lehman, which I think is the last time we did this, like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So let's rock.
That is correct. It has been that long that for about 5 minutes, I had to try and consciously, very hard, think who won, and then I had to decide, well, how does this affect the scoring? Well, it affects the scoring that Craig Kilborn will always be on the board. He is currently in third place. You cannot take it away. He is currently in third place, and I don't know if he'll ever be passed. But here we go with a new Random Wolf of the Week. Are you boys ready?
Let's get this.
Don't forget about your heat checks. They will come after this clue. This Random Wolf of the Week played his college ball in the Atlantic Coast Conference, the ACC.
Jeff Teague.
Jeff Teague is not correct.
We have already done Jeff Teague before. I've got the list of former Random Wolves here. I was going to guess Will Avery again, but we've already done Will Avery too. So that was in season 1.
How about this for a new wrinkle? If you guess a Random Wolf in your heat check that's already been used, that counts against you.
No,
okay. It's a strike?
Okay.
It's a free guess as long as you control F.
I need you to submit an ARC to the HOA. We're not just making up new rules now, okay? That would involve me to be way more prepared. I'm just letting it rip.
Check the bylaws, Kyle. Check the bylaws.
Okay, Sheldon Williams.
Sheldon Williams is not correct. That's a name I don't think anybody has mentioned in any of these Random Wolves.
I was trying to think of Duke players who played for the Timberwolves. Kyle, do you have an actual heat check guess? Or?
No, Jeff Teague. Sheldon Williams. Jeff I didn't know. When I think of Sheldon Williams, I think that he was married to Candace Parker. So I was researching. He's no longer married to Candace Parker.
Okay.
The more you know.
Yeah.
Good work, Kyle. Yeah, submit that for your TMZ application. This Random Wolf of the Week is Georgia born.
Okay, we've already done Anthony Edwards too, right?
We have done Ant. Georgia born, college ball in the ACC. This Random Wolf of the Week, a former member of our beloved Sioux Falls Skyforce. Who I believe, have both of you seen them in person? I know Kyle has.
I have not had the pleasure, no.
I tried to work once for the Dakota Wizards when they were out in Bismarck. And I did an interview with someone at a local establishment there, Hooters. And I did not get the job. But
that's not where they took you for the interview.
Wait, were you interviewing to work at Hooters or for the basketball team?
Yeah, let's just keep it moving. Let's just keep moving. Let's just keep moving.
Okay, well, we're on to number 4. This random wolf of the week is 6'4" and shoots right-handed.
I still think it's Jeff Teague, but I'm not going to get made fun of anymore.
6'4", shoots right-handed. Former member of the Sioux Falls Skyforce, Georgia-born from the ACC Conference. This random wolf of the week was a first-round pick in the NBA.
That's CBA, right? Sioux Falls, CBA.
Well, I think it. Well, no, isn't it what we call D League now?
I think it was
G League?
G League.
G League.
Yeah.
I think they've been everywhere.
Okay.
Like a lot of those feeder teams, I guess, if that's what you want to call them.
My family used to have tickets to the lacrosse Catbirds. That was a CBA team. I don't think they.
That's what I was thinking of when I thought that maybe you had been to a Skyforce game. This random wolf of the week, gentlemen, was traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves. It might enlighten you to know that this random wolf of the week was also traded away by the Minnesota Timberwolves.
I feel like that's most NBA
Yeah, it's like
players,
everyone.
right?
Everybody gets traded in the NBA.
You're just a salary slot to be traded to a new city.
That's all you are. You're just money. You're a commodity. This random wolf of the week plays shooting guard.
Plays.
Shooting guard.
Is this Rashad McCants?
This is not Rashad McCants.
That's my first official wrong guess, right?
That is your first official wrong guess. You posed the question, have we done Anthony Edwards? No, you said we did Anthony Edwards. That was not even a question. My apologies to you. This random wolf of the week has played in 42 playoff games. 42 playoff games.
Battle tested.
This one's tough.
Battle tested.
This random wolf, at least compared to me, and I think most of this show, bit of a youngin'. 28 years old.
Okay.
Okay. In my best Larry David, which is not good at all.
6'4".
So your recent clues, 28 years old, 42 playoff games, a shooting guard, traded to the Timberwolves.
Traded to the Timberwolves. Could
And
that have been a draft night trade?
Traded away from the Timberwolves as well.
For
You were on something. You were close.
Josh
You were going to say
Okogie.
something.
Josh Okogie.
Are you going to go with Josh Okogie?
Yes, the final answer.
Okogie, no. I was trying to come up with something cool, but I couldn't.
28 years old.
So you got one left, huh, Phil?
I'm coming out firing here. Yeah.
Kyle may just try and run out the clock on you. Let's see here. This random wolf of the week has averaged 7.5 points per game in his NBA career. So, I mean, obviously he plays.
The Wolves drafted that guy.
Did you guys know?
I'm walking on thin ice here.
You're on eggshells. You gotta know it before you say it. This random wolf of the week played in more than 100 games for the Wolves.
Oh, this sucks.
Anytime you say something like that, Kyle, I take it as a compliment. That means job well done, Ross.
ACC.
This random wolf of the week's current cap hit is $6 million per sport track.
Whoa. Say that again.
This random wolf of the week's current cap hit is $6 million per sport track.
Oh, this one is going to ruin my day. I can just feel it. I'm going to be like, I cannot believe it was him.
This random wolf of the week is currently playing in the playoffs. Or to be more specific, his team is still alive in the playoffs.
Okay, that's also kind of a clue.
Do you guys have any ad reads to give me some extra time? Let's sell some stuff.
Man.
This random wolf of the week will forever be linked to Rudy Gobert.
I'm going Malik Beasley.
This random, is that a guess, Phil?
It has to be. I blurted it out.
You said Malik Beasley. Can you be more specific on the Beasley?
Well, that's what.
Wait. Hold on. What is Malik Beasley right or wrong?
I'm going to give it to Phil. He's right. There's just 2 Malik Beasleys in Timberwolves history.
What?
What?
What do you mean?
Hold on.
We've had 2 Malik Beasleys, have we not?
What?
You're right.
There's a
Michael Beasley. No, I'm sorry. Nope, you're right. You're right.
Right.
Yell at me.
Am I right?
Yell at me. No, you're right.
Is
you're
it
right.
Malik Beasley?
You are right, Phil. You are right. Boo me. You are right. Why am I thinking of the Skittles eater as a Michael Beasley?
Well,
Michael Beasley, Malik Beasley.
Well, he did something before he ate the Skittles, usually in that order, that got him more in trouble with the NBA. But
hold on. I need to know the rest of the clues. Congrats to Phil. He hit a buzzer beater. He isolated me at the top of the key, and he hit one over my face.
That's completely my fault for ruining your moment, Phil. For some reason, I was combining the 2 names. They both did have the same last name, at least. I'll give me that, please. Kyle, he literally did beat the buzzer. I was down to 1 more clue before we got super easy. The next clue, you would have nailed it, because the next clue is literally this random wolf of the week, also known as the Mutant, which I had never heard. Did I miss that?
Nope.
I would not have known that. No.
Bees and Threesley.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would have done it right there.
Yeah, that would have done it.
Getting jiggy with it could have been a clue in there. His little 3-point jig that he does. I'm really excited for him to drill 8 threes tonight in a Pistons blowout victory, sending it back to Madison Square Garden for a Game 7.
Keep it going, baby.
On the weekly topic now of HOAs, was there ever a clue that this random wolf of the week did not enjoy neighborhood tours during the holidays?
Yeah. Somebody in his group may have
that would have got it for me.
May have wanted to tell him that the Parade of Homes is a thing, and another thing though that threw me off a little bit was you made it sound like he was, like you said, his team is still in the playoffs, but he's kind of just along for the ride. Was kind of the way you threw us off there. He's literally like a key cog on a really good Pistons team this year.
The funny part is I'm gonna try and change my best the next time, because A, I butchered the ending. B, I tried making it more broad, and by trying to make it more broad, I just confused you more, Phil. But you still got it right.
Yeah, what was your plan if there actually were 2 Malik Beasleys? Was it like you were like one of us was going to guess a Malik Beasley, and then you were going to put us through like a quiz or something, or what was? No, well,
I had backup questions. I wanted you to be more specific on the time frame of the player, which is also hilarious.
You got to know his middle name. Which, by the way, can you guys guess what Malik Beasley's middle name is?
So let's just think about how dumb I am in this case. Okay,
by the way, I know that
I had multiple opportunities staring at both of these players' pages to get the first name right. And I still kept operating under the assumption that they had the same name for a good 10 minutes. I'm just going to out myself out on that.
I will say, I thought one of those days. I thought you meant the late, great, rest in peace, Malik Sealy.
Malik Sealy.
He's getting that one, but I was like, we had 2 Malik Beasleys, man.
I do want to point out, and these are completely random draws, as you guys know. That's why we have had really good Timberwolves and really obscure ones when we do this. Here's what's great about this one. Okay, I don't know if you guys have made this connection yet. It's Malik Beasley, who plays for the Detroit Pistons. His team is playing the New York Knicks. What do we do on this pod? Knickknacks and the Motor City Minute, and we get them both.
That's right.
With this player on that random connection. So, Kyle, what do you got on your Motor City Minute and your Knickknacks Game 6 preview? Go.
I'm with Phil. I think that series goes the distance. I think it's going to be awesome. The Pistons have shown a real level of fight that you don't normally see from a young team like that. And I think Detroit's going to be a scene out of 8 Mile tonight. Like, that thing's going to be rocking, and I expect that thing to go back to New York for Game 7.
Detroit has been. I've watched almost every minute of every game of the series because it's been a brawl. It's been fun. You've got I mean, it's fun watching any Tibbs coach teams because by the end of the game, they're all limping and gasping for air. But I think outside of like the last 5 or 6 minutes of the first two games, the Pistons have been the better team in the series.
Correct. Yeah.
But also those last 4 or 5 minutes or 6 minutes of playoff games are super important and high leverage. And Jalen Brunson knows how to navigate them more than Cade Cunningham and company. But God, if they can ride the wave of home crowd momentum, get it to Madison Square Garden, that's going to be a wild scene this weekend.
And if the Knicks do blow a 3-1 lead, Flagrant Howls might go live from Phil's house late at night.
Listen, I am not that petty. We would pre-record and schedule it for the morning, Kyle. Okay. He's producer Ross, the keeper of the Random Wolf of the Week. For Kyle Theige, you can find more of him on Dame Moore's NBA podcast. This is a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.